Welcome. My name is Amy, and I will be your personal guide as together we explore strategies to improve your skills to make you a more effective leader. You've taken an important step in enhancing and expanding your ability to interact with others in a meaningful and impactful manner, and I want you to get everything you can out of this training. This training is designed so that you can take it at your own pace. Take your time, do the activities to ensure you will be able to put your new learning into practice. Learning alone will not make you successful. You must take action. It is only through the application of our knowledge that we can truly shine, and I know you can shine. We're in this journey together. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time with your questions or comments. I'm here for you. Now, before we get started, make sure you've printed off your training guide. This will help you capture all the key information you will need to put your learning into practice. I know, it may seem old school, but some of the latest research shows that writing out notes is the most effective way for adults to learn. So if you haven't printed out your guide yet, hit that pause button and go do that right now. All ready? Excellent. It's my pleasure to be your guide through this training. Let's begin. What's your perspective lens? Conflict of perspectives happens even when you're experiencing an event firsthand. Maybe you've experienced going into a meeting, hearing a presentation, and walking away with a clear understanding of the presenter's message. But when you talk to a colleague who was at the same meeting, sat next to you, and heard the same presentation, you find out they have a completely different understanding of the presenter's message. How does this happen? It happens because no two people are exactly the same. We all have different experiences, and our brains process things differently. Everything we experience or learn is framed by our perspective, and perspectives are highly subjective. What is beautiful or tall or rude to one person may be ugly, short, and friendly to another person. Leaders must cultivate the ability to explain their perspective and to listen to and consider the perspectives of others. Accepting their truths does not mean that you will necessarily adopt their viewpoint. It means having the ability to recognize without judgment that there is more than one way to cut up an apple. A leader must be the role model in respecting various perspectives and expressing a willingness to learn from them. You can begin by acknowledging that different perspectives exist and intentionally seeking them out in order to gain the largest pool of information and facts available. It is important to admit that all of these perspectives are real to those who express them, just as your reality is real to you based on your perspective. Although this process can take time, the benefits are well worth the effort. What you see depends not only on what you look at, but also where you look from. James Deacon. Lens sharing. Perspective is all about how we view the world. It is based on our past experiences, our beliefs and values, our understanding of the situation, and our expectations. Perspective is very individual and a subjective viewpoint. Do we see the glass as half empty, half full, or the wrong size? Perspective shapes our reality. It also highlights the facts that we all have slightly different realities based on our perspective. An important leadership skill is the ability to hit the pause button to one's own perspective to look through the lens of another to see their perspective. Don't simply be an observer when doing this. Be curious about this alternate perspective and be genuine in your desire to learn about and to understand the perspective. Leaders need to be able to see the big picture. To see the big picture, you must be able to take in all the perspectives into consideration. One of my favorite poems about perspective is The Blind Man and the Elephant by John Godfrey Saxe. This poem tells the story of 6 blind men who each had the opportunity to touch an elephant and describe it to others. The problem is that each of the men were only able to touch one part of the elephant. This became their understanding, their reality, of what the elephant was. Blind Men and the Elephant. Here's how the poem goes. It was 6 men of Indostan, to learning much inclined, who went to see the elephant, though all of them were blind, that each by observation might satisfy his mind. The first approached the elephant, and happening to fall against his broad and sturdy side, at once began to bawl. God bless me, but the elephant is very like a wall. The second, feeling of the tusks, cried, Ho! What have we here, so very round and smooth and sharp? To me 'tis mighty clear, the wonder of an elephant is very like a spear. The third approached the animal, and happening to take the squirming trunk within his hands, thus boldly up and spake. I see, quoth he, the elephant is very like a snake. The fourth reached out an eager hand and felt about the knee. What most this wondrous beast is like is mighty plain, quoth he. 'Tis clear enough the elephant is very like a tree. The fifth, who chanced to touch the ear, said even the blindest man can tell what this resembles most. Deny the fact who can, the marvel of the elephant is very like a fan. The sixth no sooner had begun about the beast to grope, than seizing on the swinging tail that fell within his scope. I see, quoth he, the elephant is very like a rope. And so these men of Indostan disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion exceeding stiff and strong, though each was partly in the right, and all were in the wrong. So oft in theological wars the disputants, I ween, rail on in utter ignorance of what each other mean, and prate about an elephant not one of them has seen. I love that poem. So while one blind man describes the tusk as being hard and pointy like a spear, another was describing the tail as flexible and rough like a rope. The other four men also reported wildly different understandings of what the elephant was like. While each was correct in describing that specific part of the elephant, each was wrong in believing that their one single perspective represented the elephant as a whole. This is an easy and common trap that people fall into. We tend to believe that because we experience something firsthand, we know everything there is to know about that situation. We don't. The job of the leader is to be able to gather information from everyone and then put that information together like the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. The more pieces you can acquire, the better picture you will have of the overall situation. This process is especially important when making decisions. Putting it all together. Understanding the perspectives of others not only increases your cognitive capacity, it provides you with the information needed for successful negotiating, compromise, or consensus building. It also allows you to identify meaningful incentives and rewards. All great leaders excel in these areas of expanding your understanding of perspective, and it's a key strategy for success. I have come to recognize that all I can do is accept each perspective as being valid to those who share it, discover the many lessons learned, and move forward with a newly energized commitment to be aware of my perspectives about issues and remain open to learning about the perspectives of others. I've seen how this openness can shape me into a wiser and more compassionate person and leader. You choose. How often do you find your views conflicting with someone else's? How often do you take the time to understand their perspective? How do you do anything to help them understand where you are coming from, or do you just continue to argue your point? Think about a specific conflict that's taking place right now in your life. What is the issue? Write that down on your notes. Have you clearly identified your perspective of the situation? Do you fully understand the perspective of the others involved? If not, what can you do to achieve this? And write that down. The first step in resolving a conflict is making sure that everyone clearly understands all of the perspectives. What is one small step you can take to make sure everyone's perspective is shared before any solutions are discussed? Write this down and commit to making this happen. I challenge you to listen and find out why someone believes what they believe before making a judgment. I challenge you to respectfully seek out multiple perspectives on an issue before determining your stance. I challenge you to think for yourself rather than accept whatever story you hear first. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to let me guide you through this training. I hope you found it useful, and I really hope that you stick with your plan and start adapting your leadership approach to take in more varied perspective and change your perspective lens.